Hello. This is Antje from Byte Shuffle. Thank you for always watching our videos. This time, I've put together a guide on how to play Doomsday against UB Tempo, including matchup strategy and sideboard plans. There's also a link to the pile breakdown video in the description, so feel free to check it out. Here is the deck list we will be using this time. Starting from this time, I'll be running a list that includes Quantum Riddler. I think this hand is a keep on the draw, but on the play, I'd like something a little stronger. I think I would have kept if Cavern of Souls were a different land. No lands in this hand, so I'll take a mulligan. I'll put Thassa's Oracle and Lion's Eye Diamond on the bottom. Surveil's effect leaves it on top of the library. Looks like my opponent is on UB Tempo. I'm digging for Doomsday. I stacked the top as Personal Tutor Dark Ritual Days, then drew. They're clearly holding up a hard counter, so I'll just pass the turn. I'll use discard to check what's ahead. I'd like to hold on to Brainstorm, but if Orcish Bowmasters comes down, it'll be too late, so I went ahead and cast it. I'm going all in. From here, I'll increase the mana needed for the combo. I'll counter it with Daze. I'll counter it with Daze. Since my opponent doesn't have a clock on the board, I'll focus on setting up Cavern of Souls and making sure the pile goes down to 0 cards. Since this list only runs a single copy of Edge of Autumn, I'll include Consider in the pile. To prepare for the possibility that Consider gets countered, I'll play Street Wraith right after it in the pile. To be honest, Street Wraith is usually hard to include in the pile when you have to worry about Orcish Bowmasters. But since this list cuts down on Edge of Autumn, I adjusted the pile this way. I built the pile in this order: Thassa's Oracle, Edge of Autumn, Cavern of Souls, Street Wraith, Consider. Since I know they have Daze, I decided not to cast Quantum Riddler here. Surveil's effect sends it to the graveyard. I'll choose Wizard and win the game with Thassa's Oracle. Before sideboarding, I'd like to review the list we used. First, the conclusion. I will explain it step by step. These are the cards from UB Tempo that can affect Doomsday. First, there are the counterspells: Force of Will, Daze, Force of Negation, Consigned to Memory, along with Thoughtseize. To deal with those, I bring in Flusterstorm and Duress. In exchange, I take out Cabal Ritual and Personal Tutor. That's because the matchup often turns into a back and forth of disruption, which slows the game down, making fast, speed-focused cards less valuable. Personal Tutor tends to be weak against blue decks in general, so I cut down on it. But even so, playing a long game against UB Tempo usually feels unfavorable. So while it's not particularly strong in this matchup, I'll keep 2 copies in the deck by process of elimination and aim for a plan that can close out the game quickly. Next, let's talk about Tamio, Inquisitive Student. Because of sideboard space, my opponent can't fully cut all of their removal spells. They also tend to keep some removal in, anticipating that the Doomsday player might lean on a creature-based plan. Because of that, I generally don't bring in creatures like Barrogoyf or Shieldred the Apocalypse. If it's clear that my opponent has cut most of their removal, or if they're running a lot of hate cards like Disruptor Flute, then bringing them in might be worth considering. Next, there's Orcish Bowmasters. Once it hits the board, It puts a real restriction on how you can draw cards. To deal with that, I bring in Vision Charm. Even if there are multiple Orcish Bowmasters on the battlefield, you can use Vision Charm in its mill 4 cards mode as a pile opener. It can also phase out Disruptor Flute, which occasionally shows up in some lists. Lastly, against both Tamio, Inquisitive Student and Orcish Bowmasters. As a bit of a safety measure, I bring in a single copy of Long Goodbye. In exchange, I take out Daze and Misdirection. As for Misdirection, its applications are quite narrow, so I replace it with more useful options after sideboarding. I'm looking for a faster hand, so I'll take a mulligan. It took me a while to decide what to put on the bottom, but between Brainstorm and Doomsday, I ended up bottoming Doomsday. The reason is that since this deck runs Orcish Bowmasters, I'd rather cast Brainstorm early, and it also helps me find the cards I need more easily. However, if I expect my opponent to start with Thoughtseize, it might have been better to double up on Doomsday instead and just hope to naturally draw a land. The opponent cast Ponder and chose not to shuffle. I'm going all in. From here, I'll increase the mana needed for the combo. I'll counter it with Daze. As for why I didn't lead with Thoughtseize, I was expecting my opponent's hand to either have 2 sets of pitch counters, or 1 set plus a combination of Orcish Bowmasters or Consigned to Memory. Since I thought the latter was more likely, I decided to go all in on the first turn. That said, I'm not sure I'd make the same play if I were in a similar situation again. It's entirely possible that I just got lucky this time. Next, I'll talk about the pile I'm going to build. Since I don't have any lands on the battlefield, I need to get 2 lands into play before I can win. Since Orcish Bowmasters is a concern, I'll include an island in the pile and use a fetch land as the pile opener. Using Thoughtseize from my hand would probably leave me too low on life, so I really don't want to include it in the pile, but I'll add Daze instead to increase the number of actions I can take. I'll fill the remaining slots with Edge of Autumn and Thassa's Oracle to maximize speed. I built the pile in this order: Island, Thassa's Oracle, Edge of Autumn, Cavern of Souls, Daze. They're clearly representing Orcish Bowmasters, so I'll use a discard spell to check ahead first. I took out Orcish Bowmasters. I'll counter it with Daze. I'll choose Wizard and win the game with Thassa's Oracle. Thank you for watching up to this point. I apologize for the many play mistakes. I hope to improve at MTG together with everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving it a thumbs up. See you next time. This is Antya.